Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about the reed. Without the reed, we can't play the clarinet. So it's really important to learn how to handle the reed properly and how to care for it.
The reed is made from cane. Most reed brands use cane from Argentina and France. So for the reed, the back of the reed, we see there's some writing. Usually it's the brand of the reed, and it also tells us what size. This reed is a Van Doren reed, and the size of the reed is 4. 4 is considered a pretty thick reed size, and you won't be playing that kind of large, thick size. You will be playing a 2 or a 2.5 reed. There's certain parts to the reed. This is what we call the tip. It's the end of the reed, and it's also the most delicate. This is more of the center area of the reed. We call this the heart. This is the thickest part around the reed. And we have the end of the reed also. We call that the heel. And the sides of the reeds, we call those the rail.
Reeds are really delicate, so it's important to handle them with care. The most delicate part of the reed is the tip.
It's important when we handle the reed that we avoid touching the tip of the reed. The tip of the reed is the most delicate part, so we want to avoid touching that to prevent any kind of chipping or splitting or cracking. When you're handling a reed, it's best to hold the reed in the lower portion, the thicker part of the reed. If you notice here, you'll see that where the tip is, it's the thinnest area of the reed.
As a clarinet player, it's important to have good conditioned reeds, and it's also important to have at least 3 to 4 good reeds. The reed helps the clarinet produce sound because the reed vibrates. So before you play the clarinet, when you take out that reed, you're going to wet the reed with your mouth. I'll show you how to do that. So you're going to put the reed in your mouth. The reed doesn't have to be in your mouth for terribly long, and this is going to help you be able to produce a sound.
When you get your reeds will come in with a case. The cases usually look like this, or maybe this. It really depends on the brand. It's also extremely important that when we take on a reed or take off a reed that we're very careful. Here's an example of how you need to take the reed out of the casing. In this instance, I have to slide the reed out of the opposite direction of the closing here. It's important to move slowly when you do it. I'm holding the reed here securely with my thumb and my index finger, and then I'm holding the area here so I can have a good handle, and I gently slide the reed out. Now, once you're finished with the reed, you can either have a case like this, or you might just want to put it back in the casing it came in. For that, you have to remember that you have to not crush the reed or break the reed. So I usually start with putting the thickest part, the heel of the reed, through here. After that, I'm going to make sure that the next thicker part of the reed here goes through here. And then I have to make sure I gently take it. Now, you might come out a little bit. What you can do is open it up a little bit here and have your thumb help you with it, so you could slide it through. Take your time when you're doing this. Here's another example. If you notice, you see the size of the reed and the brand, and you should see the heel of the reed, that's back area here, sticking out. What we don't want is this to come further in, like this. That's not good. So let's make sure that we keep this part here open and that the reed is safe. And you notice that the tip is protected. Just take your thumb here and your index finger, hold it. My thumb and index finger here, and I just gently slide the reed off. When I'm finished with the reed, I gently line it up in the bottom, and I'll slide it carefully. And I don't have to go all the way in. Remember, we want this part to come out. That helps it so we won't break the tip and that we can easily get the reed out when we want to use it again.
I'm also going to talk about some other parts of the clarinet. So we talked about the reed, But this is also going to involve some other parts of the clarinet. The mouthpiece cap, I like to call it the Darth Vader cap, and this clamp that helps us hold the reed so we can play. The technical term is called the ligature. The ligature, this particular ligature, it fastens in the front area of the mouthpiece where the reed plays. However, some ligatures fasten in the back. When we want to put the reed on the mouthpiece, it's a good idea to fully assemble the clarinet first. Then added the mouthpiece and the ligature and reed last. However, for this demonstration, I will have the mouthpiece only so you can see specifically how I do it. The first step is to loosen the ligature, right? We need to take this ligature off slowly. The next thing that I'm going to do after I wet the reed is I want to line up the reed with the tip of the mouthpiece. It's important that when we line up the reed that we make sure that it's not too far up, that it's not too low, and that it's not crooked. We want to make sure that we line it up flush with the mouthpiece, the tip of the mouthpiece. And what's nice about the mouthpiece is the way it's shaped, it kind of sort of looks a little bit like a reed, right? That's going to be our guide to make sure that when we line up our reed, that we have it in the right place. The next step is to fasten our reed to the mouthpiece using the ligature. I have my clarinet put together now. I have everything put together except I don't have my reed on. So now it's time to put the reed on. I'll share with you how I do it so you can learn how to do it too. Step 1. Take the reed out of the case gently. Step number 2 is I'm going to wet the reed. The next step is I'm going to line up the reed with the mouthpiece. And I'm going to share with you how I do that here. The next step is while I'm lining it up, I actually have the clarinet balanced on the chair in between my legs so I can have a good handle. If you notice, it's much easier for me to hold the reed and line it up if I have the clarinet secure. So here I have my thumb holding the clarinet reed and it's securely holding the clarinet as well. The next step is I'm going to add the ligature and we're going to put it on, but I gotta be careful. The tip is really delicate and I don't want to mess it up. Remember how I said that ligatures are different? This is the ligature I use. It looks very different than what this ligature looks like. Depending on what clarinet you're going to get, you might get a ligature that looks like this, or maybe you will get one that sort of looks like this. They all function the same way. It has to help us hold that reed so we can play. I'm going to use my ligature instead of this one. Once I have my reed lined up, I'm going to carefully and slowly slide it on the mouthpiece. Now, I still have my thumb on here. And when I'm sliding it on, I'm being very, very careful. Making sure that it's lined up because I want to make sure that the reed does not move around. So it's important to tighten the reed enough that the reed doesn't move, but also we want to make sure that the reed is secure to vibrate. Now that I have the reed fastened to the mouthpiece, now I'm going to be able to play. So you see here, I tightened up the ligature. I have it lined up here, and I'll show you the profile, the side. And if you notice that my ligature is not too high up or too low, it's literally
right just below that little curve. I could even go a little bit lower if I wanted to. Now, the main thing is to make sure that when we have it lined up that we're actually able to play. So let's see if I did it correct. Alright, I can make a sound. Sounds pretty good. Now we're ready to play. Just like we stated before, that the mouthpiece, ligature, and reed are the last things that we put together on the clarinet. They're the first things that we take off when we disassemble our instrument. It's really important that we take off the ligature and the reed first. The reason why is the reed is the most delicate part of the clarinet, and we don't want to chip or accidentally break our reed. So the first thing that we will do is we will loosen our ligature, take it off, and so we could take off the reed. First step, loosen the ligature. I'm securing the reed with my thumb here. You can see that I'm holding it here because I don't want the reed to drop. Sometimes the reed stays on the mouthpiece, but I don't want to take that chance because the reed is so delicate. The next step that I'll do is I will keep my thumb holding the heel of the reed, that's the lower portion of the reed, and I will slide it off. Once I've slid the ligature off slowly, now I have just the reed and the mouthpiece. I'm going to take off the reed from the mouthpiece. So, remember I was talking about how delicate the reed is? So it's important that we put the reed away. What I'm going to do is put it back in its case. I'm going to slowly put the reed back on, put the reed back in the case, and I'm going to make sure that I don't slide the reed in too deeply. If I do slide the reed too deeply in a case like this, I could ruin the reed and break the tip. So here we go. I have it right here, and I'm going to slowly put the reed in. And there you go. It's important that we have our reed safe and secure, and so by putting it back in the case, instead of leaving it on the clarinet, it's going to make sure that the longevity of the reed, how long the reed's going to last, is going to be much longer. A reed can last, if it's taken care of, up to a month. However, sometimes reeds don't last that long. And sometimes when we get a box of reeds, not all of them play as well as we want to. But it's important to know that if we take care of our reeds, just like we take care of our instrument, it's going to play well and it's going to serve its purpose. Suggested reed brands are Van Doren and Rico. If you choose to get Van Doren reeds, make sure that you get what we call the classic blue box reeds. If you decide to get the Rico reeds, make sure that you get the orange box reeds. It's important that we get the right reeds. And we have to also make sure that we get reeds that are specifically for the clarinet. The size of reeds that you're going to be playing are either going to be a 2 or a 2.5. I usually start beginning students on a size 2 and we work our way up to a 2.5. Alright, thanks for watching. Happy practicing.